I will rain down on a godly ranking firestorm upon you. You're gonna have to call the ranking United Nations and get a ranking binding resolution to keep me from ranking destroying you. I am talking scorched earth, mother ranker. I will massacre you.
What is going on? How is it going? I got this guy, Thomas Christopher at @ThomasCP_NFL with us today. He, of course, picked Tom Cruise, which is why you got that gem from Tropic Thunder. Tom, we'll introduce you in a second and talk about what you're got going on. But first of all, you've joined Adjust the Ranks. We are here all off season doing some mock drafts for you weekly. Today we got a Superflex Tight End Premium 4-round rookie mock. It's rookie draft season. We got to prepare you as much as possible. So please tune in, talk to us in the comments here. We also have our Discord dropped in the comments. We dropped a Discord about 2 weeks ago. That's available for you. So check out the comments here. And if you want the information to join and you don't see it here, just contact us over on Twitter at the Fantasy Football Universe. Also, we have Tom here with us today. You see the list of guests we had on before, and Andrew Erickson up next week. We also have the entire FFU team here going the day after the draft, which is Sunday. I don't know if that's the day after or like hours after the draft ends, but either way, we're there to do a rookie mock draft with you as soon as possible. So that's all the garbage out of the way. Let's talk to this guy here. Tom, how you doing? Thanks for joining us, man.
I'm doing good, man. I was curious why you asked about the Tom Cruise question. Now I know, and that was an awesome surprise.
Hey, listen, we try to keep it fresh and Adjust the Ranks, do some things that are at least a little bit interesting. You got to hook the people's attention initially. So we're just trying to do what we can do here to get things going. Jamie, what is up? How's it going? We've got Jamie in the chat and a couple of other guys in the draft as well that will kick off in just a few minutes. But Tom, first, why don't you tell the people what you've been going on lately? Because for people who don't know, Tom was my boss a few years ago, really helped me just get out there and get my written content, which I never knew through no fault of Tom and his website, but I never knew that people would not be interested in the written content, which is why we focus on the video content now. But Tom is over at the League Winners, owns the League Winners. And Tom, why don't you tell us what's going on now with you guys? Because you guys got a lot of interesting things in store.
I appreciate the flattery. Yeah, we do college football, kind of like college football beat writers in a sense. I like to call us player liaisons because we like to work a lot with players and promote them. We cover a lot of college football teams. Now we're hitting some P4 schools and just kind of traveling the country, trying to put players first and put them in the best position to succeed as they get towards the professional level.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you guys are like in the trenches on the ground floor, like talking to these kids as they rise up. And you're really going to see in a couple of years for sure some bangers, some guys who pop. And you're going to be like, I knew that guy. I talked to him and he's great, or he's a complete dick. Hopefully not, but hopefully he's great and wish him nothing but success. It must be pretty awesome to meet these guys where they're at in college right now.
Yeah, and there's definitely both sides of that coin for sure that we've dealt with, but nothing's better than just kind of being there, kind of seeing those kids in person, going to the campuses, going to the stadiums. The atmosphere is, it's incredible to say the least.
I love it. So today, once again, we're doing the 4-round rookie mock. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do, Tom, I'm going to make you do what I make everybody do, because why not? Spin the pickerwheel.com, not a sponsor. When we draft our rookie drafts, what we do is, we tend to kind of draft in a vacuum. We say we want to choose the best players. And certainly that strategy is appropriate and probably one of the better strategies. However, when we draft in a rookie draft, in our dynasty leagues, we do not do that. We have teams, we have needs, we have feelings about certain ways. So we're not asking when we spin this wheel, Tom, for you to like completely throw any sort of, value out of the window. But at the same time, if you're looking at the difference between maybe Jackson Dart at the end of the first and a Matthew Golden, maybe your decision is made for you if you have those guys in similar tiers. So these are things we're thinking here. So Tom, as I ask all my guests, do you want to spin the wheel or do you want to defer?
I think I gotta be gentlemanly and defer, right?
Listen, deferring is always the move. I'd say about 80% of people coming on have deferred. It's the right move. It's the only move. And I will be drafting best player available as a result. Once again, and we got the confetti. We try to keep it fun here on the show. We got the confetti here. So best player available, obviously just talking about value, but also the players that we have higher on our board. So that will be a pretty easy one. Tom, you ready to spin?
Yeah, let's do it.
Maybe I should get pickerwheel.com to get a sponsor. If you're watching from pickerwheel.com, just hit me up. We'll talk about it a little bit. Tom's got a win now build.
I love it.
So for me, Tom, I kind of like to, in these cases, gravitate a little bit more towards guys who I think will have a role right away. But are you feeling, let's say you're pretty much set, you're ready to go. Are you feeling like there's a position that you want more than any other position in your rookie drafts? How do you feel about that going into a rookie draft of the win now build?
It kind of varies based on year, year by year, right? Like last year, not necessarily the best running back class in terms of, guys, but this year it's kind of the opposite where there's a couple wide receivers that may, stick out, but really it's a running back heavy class. And, you got Ashton Jeanty there. Yeah, obviously he's the main guy, but I think you kind of group like, honestly, like the next 8 players and it's kind of like pick your treat, right?
Yeah.
Like, Mario Hampton's a great guy. I know a lot of people like Giddens too. So it kind of, I think personally, running back is that position for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as I just remind everybody in the draft that we have 1 minute till we're going to kick it off. Yeah, it's important to definitely consider running back. And I'm the same way, probably because I start all my dynasty drafts with like heavy wide receiver. I'm like, fuck
Yes.
running backs. We're not dealing with them until the 8th round. We're going 0 wide running back.
Yeah.
But certainly I try to approach it as like a year 2 build. So if I'm in year 2 or year 3, I know that I'm going to need a running back because I probably have like James Conner and nobody else on my team who I was able to get later. So I really need to load up on those guys. And running back for a win now build, we know these guys come into the league. Not all of them, but a lot of them come into the league and dominate from the jump. So I totally agree with you. And like you said, there's no better draft class than this draft class to get yourself 2, 3, 4 running backs in the draft.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. There's even a lot of hope depending on the way this draft goes. I'm hoping I can snag one of my sleepers on the back end of this 4-round rookie draft that we have going on.
I love it. Well, let's try to keep that quiet and let's try to start up this draft. So once again, 4 rounds. Superflex, tight end premium, rookie mock. Here we go. And Tom, you were sitting at the 107 as I'm trying to invite people instead of starting the draft. Here we go. We know that Ashton Jeanty in there, he goes number 1 off the board. We know that probably by the 107, you're probably not looking at Cam Ward. You're probably not looking at Amari and Hampton. I've seen all of the other guys, including TEP, fall to the 107. Like you said, it's this big group. Who are you hoping gets here, especially you're considering your win now? What are your thoughts about, the 107?
In the win now position, I kind of want a player that should be a plug and play, right? Come in first year, either he's going to have a role right off the bat, or he can get kind of slowly eased into a role. I know a lot of people saw that with JSN with Seattle, and now he's presumably going to have a much bigger role in year 2. But at 7 pick, normally your team is on the cusp of potentially competing for a championship, so you want a player that's going to help you immediately. I'm looking for I'm looking for somebody who's going to contribute right away. And actually, this is very interesting seeing how it's playing out right now.
Yeah, I love this. And I guess before we get to your pick, let's get this from Jamie. Trading down from the 103 to 107, because we just talked about the fact that it's kind of this large glut of players. Anyone in the top 7 after Jeanty seems interesting enough. If you're moving down, Tom, from the 103 to 107, what would you like on top in an ideal situation?
I think it depends kind of, if you're if you're just talking strictly draft value, you always try to want to get, a second round pick thrown in there, maybe,
Sure.
a mid the late. But if you're talking players, you always try to go for young upside or guys who can, help you compete right away.
Yep.
So it really just depends on what your team build is. I would have to know more specifically about what that team build is. But if you can try to get a round 2 pick, if you're going draft capital, try to get a round 2 pick on top of that. I mean, you can't go wrong there, right?
Yep, I totally agree with that. And I would say too, if you mentioned the player value, I saw somebody trade the 101 for DK, the 103, and like I think another second round pick. And I still want Genty, but it was at least interesting to me that DK has that sort of value in Pittsburgh these days. The value seems to jump back on board, even though he doesn't have a quarterback. Who knows? Maybe the guy you picked at 107 goes to Pittsburgh. What are you thinking about Luther Burden here at the 107?
I know he's kind of been getting pushed down on drafts lately. But he's a guy that questions about his potential route running, questions about his ability to play outside, which is a fair question. But I think we're kind of seeing in the today's NFL, they're looking for a lot of slot guys, a lot of guys that can be
Yep.
versatile. I think Burden is definitely one of those players. He's an early declare player as well, which tends to bode well for the wide receiver position. So he's a player that I think is kind of being slept on, man. I mean, I've taken him. Funny enough, I've taken him in a Devy league, and people didn't expect him to kind of fall off the way he has. And personally, for me, I'm kind of happy I'm getting him here at the 7th pick.
Yeah, I don't have any issue with that. Guys like JJ Zacharyson, who's on the show last week, would totally agree with you. He said Luther Burden, wide receiver one, got roasted for it,
I'm
but
close to
still
that
stood
too.
by it on the show.
Yeah.
And here it's hard to argue that, especially if he goes back into the first, beginning of the second round. He should have that value, and his athleticism is just crazy. You see how the first round went here after Genty. We had Tet, Cam, Amarian Hampton, Tyler Warren, pretty much chalk at the 105, although you can reorder them how you see fit. And then Hunter, Burden, Trey Henderson moving down to the 108. I love that value for him. Quinchan at the 109, Emeka Igbuka. So we got three teammates in a row at the 110. Colston Loveland at the 111. Remember, this is tight end premium. And I went with Shador Sanders. Sanders and Dart, there's a lot of conversation about who might be chosen ahead of the other. But I think one thing is clear at this point. There are going to be three quarterbacks taken in round one, and there might be four if Jalen Milroe invited to to sit in on the draft as well, with only 13 total invites. So how are you feeling about these quarterbacks at the top? We got two guys who run, two guys who don't. Who do you like the most, I guess?
I mean, Cam Ward is my QB1. I got to see him play in person a couple times. He's a magician,
Yeah.
in terms of his escapability. Doesn't I mean, I don't want to say he doesn't offer too much on the ground, but he can escape when he wants to, but he's always looking downfield, which I think is incredibly important for the quarterback position. Shador kind of has that same thing, except not nearly as much with the escapability and doesn't
Agree.
provide as much on the ground either. Um, as far as Dartman, I used to be heavily against him. And then
Mhm.
I watched a little bit more film, and I've kind of come away with liking him.
Yeah.
Just some of the plays he's made, some of the football IQ plays he's made to get guys open, especially in zone coverage when he's moving defenders out of the way, is something that it's very it's something you need, and you like to see that out of a young quarterback. And then Milroe, man, I'm not too much of a fan of his passing ability, but I think if he can get that coached up, he could actually be a relatively good player, I believe.
Yeah, I agree with you, and the NFL might agree with you as well. We're going to see where these guys end up. Interesting stat that I pulled from last week. As I'll resume the draft, you have about 30 seconds to make your choice here. But interesting stat that I pulled up was Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe. No surprise, almost 40 yards per game rushing. Milroe was a little over that mark, Dart a little under that mark. And then you had Cam Ward about 10 yards per game, like you said, with the escapability. Shador Sanders, any guess on his yards per game rushing throughout his college career?
Uh, Two? Like
Yeah, close.
2.8?
Negative five yards per
Oh,
game
man.
from Shador.
Oh,
So
man, that's rough.
yeah, he's not the guy. But look, you could blame a little bit of that offensive line that he had to deal with in Colorado. But also you can blame on the fact that he pats the ball 600 times before he releases it, apparently. So
Yeah. Yeah, people don't like that.
yeah, hey, listen, as long as he can get it done in the NFL, he's my QB2 at the moment. I do not hate you If you were to say Jackson Dart is your QB2, that's fine. I can't do Milrow over him, but the first round steam is hard to deny at this point. So you saw the first round. Here's the second. We have Caleb Johnson at the 201, Matthew Golden at the 2-2. He's falling. The value is nice there. We got those two quarterbacks we talked about at the 2, 3, and 4. Jalen Knoll, the darling of the process, Jalen Knoll, all the way up at the 205. Another one, RJ Harvey, Mr. Bowling Ball himself at the 2-6. Trey Harris, Cam Scatterbo, Jalen Royals. Everybody loves to talk about Royals, and his Christmas tree reception perception chart just dropped as well. And Dylan Sampson, who I love. So I'm really happy with all of these guys here in the second round. Who's maybe your favorite value outside of the quarterbacks here from who was taken so far?
Man, honestly, I really love the Jalen Royals. He's just an elite route runner, man. He's physical at the line of scrimmage. He's really good against press. He doesn't allow himself to get bullied. He's good with his leverage in his stems, so he's able to increase the separation once he has it. And he has strong hands at the point of attack. He's just a guy I really am a huge fan of. And he's kind of falling under the radar in what's a weaker wide receiver class.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to argue that. I think the one thing kind of you're arguing here is you have the super big boys, and I'm going to take one of them, and you have the guys who profile a little bit more as the slot guys. So where do they fit? Where do they land? I think that's the question, right? But when you see Trey Harris versus Jalen Royals, depending on where they land and what's available for them with their different skill sets, I think we're going to feel a little bit better about one over the other. Jaden Higgins is that for me, though. I think he goes early second round. I think we see a lot of these wide receivers here between really all the second round wide receivers. We have 5 here in this draft. I think all of these guys are off the board in the second round. What do you say?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think we're going to see a little bit of a push up in that. We're going to see a lot more guys taken in the second round.
Yeah. And Matthew Golden, we'll see that, he's got the steam for the first. NFL loves burners. Everybody needs a field stretcher. We'll see it. Jamie sniped you again. Too bad. Thank you so much. Mike says, welcome to the court of Royals. This is Mike of Dynasty Dogs from the FFU. So you got a fan there as well. Let's talk a little bit about Dame Brugler convinced that Tyler Shook is the QB3. I've seen him go in the early third round, late second in one or two of these drafts as a result. Tom, what do you think about Tyler Shook? And is he going to be able to eclipse Milrow or Dart for you?
That's hot takey. Listen, I mean, as much as he could be a potentially good quarterback, he's one of the older prospects, and that usually does not bode well, especially at the quarterback position. He's a fine quarterback. Do I think he's going to be an NFL starting quarterback? No, I don't.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I think the concern is age, and I wouldn't even call it a breakout. As you're up here on the clock, you don't call it a late breakout because he didn't break out, but he at least did enough to kind of show you at 25, 26 years old that he has potential to be kind of a backup quarterback. Is he a starter? I don't think so. We'll see. And as Tom makes his selection here, we had Ryan say, if you have the 103 and Cam Ward is available, you can hold him hostage for a QB needy team. This is all great, Ryan. This is a great strategy, but you have to find that trade partner. So be careful of that. Not everyone willing to pay the farm. We're going to see that in the NFL this year, right? We're going to see when, apparently Shador doesn't go in the top 3 picks. Mel Kiper and all of these other pundits with their new drafts. They got Carter and Hunter in the top 3 with Cam. If Shador doesn't go at 4, I want my Patriots to trade back. I don't know if they do, but certainly the Jags, certainly the Raiders, they all have the opportunity to trade back if someone's hot for Shador. So we'll see if that's the case. And Tom added, you can ask for the 27 first as opposed to that year second round pick, as we talked about earlier there. So here we go in the third round. We got a lot of tight ends off the board, which sucks for me because I would love to get one of those tight ends. You see Fannin, Martinez, Ayamanor, Bond, Bashal Tootin, everybody loves him. Mid-third still seems like a good price for him. Arroyo, Ferguson, Giddens, love Giddens. Mason Taylor, Kyle Williams creeping up. Chris Sims, of course, is wide receiver 2 in the class. Watch out. Everybody thinks Chris Sims is a prophet because he got last year's class right. We'll see. Jack Besh is usually my pick at the 312. I love the value of him after he dominated the Senior Bowl. His tape looks good. I know we don't like some of the measurables here, but everybody in the third round has some, I guess, inconsistent tape or inconsistent athleticism that we don't like to see. And that's why I'm taking Ollie Gordon. You like to see the production. You don't know if these guys are going to get there, but whether it's size, whether it's speed, whether it's pure athleticism outside of the tight ends, I think the third round looks relatively chalky in terms of who was taken here. Who do you like, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I was debating between Jack Besh and Ferguson because I think Besh is going to kind of play like a big slottish kind of role in the NFL. He's another guy too, man. He's really good on getting leverage on his stems, which is like it's incredibly important for a wide receiver to get open. But I ended up going with Ferguson just because some of the rumblings I've heard with teams that he's met so far. I know the NFL kind of views him highly, and tight end premium. Might as well try to hit that, and if you get it, if you get that pot of gold in the third round, why not?
Is Ferguson your tight end 3 in the class? Because there's a lot of debate. Some people like Jason Taylor's son. Some people like the guy Cam Ward was thrown to in Arroyo. Some people love Fannin and his production. But these are the 4 names that I routinely see as tight end 3. You can mix and match them. Is Ferguson your tight end 3? And if so, give us a tight end 4 as well.
Yeah, he is. Actually, I have it Warren, Loveland, Ferguson, Fannin, Arroyo, and then I kind of have Taylor a little bit down. It's kind of a little. This is going to be a poor explanation, but for whatever reason, a lot of superstar athletes, their sons just never hit the same mark as their parents do for whatever reason. It almost always happens. Now, will he be a pro? Yes, obviously, he's going to be in the NFL. But do I think he's going to have that similar type of production? I don't, and he's a guy that I'm kind of passing over on. I'll let other people take him for now.
Yeah, I hear that. You heard it here first. Stephen A. down here says that Bronny is never going to make it in the NBA. Watch out. LeBron's going to be knocking on your door soon. Tom, you're up here in the 4th. I'll recap the 4th, and then we'll see who you pick. We have Restrepo, Brashad Smith, Jordan James, Tez Johnson, who is all around the 4th round there. Might be a value, but might be off your board. Based on how he tested. Woody Marks, Raheem Sanders. We got some of the smaller backs coming off the board with an opportunity because of that athleticism. Who are you looking at here, Tom, at the 4-7?
I'm about to take him with my sleeper. Now, I could probably get him. I might be able to get him later if I had another pick, or he might even slip to a UDFA. But honestly, I'm going to go with the Syracuse guy, LaQuinn Allen. And the main reason is pass protection. He is the best pass protector in this draft at the running back position. And I think that is what is kind of being slept on because for running backs, you have to excel in order to get on the field. If you can't block, you're not going to be on the field. And now I don't think he's necessarily the greatest runner. He's an elite receiving back. He's an elite pass protector. And I think the system that he was in Syracuse under Coach Fran Brown, who's going to see a lot of more guys get drafted just based on the culture that he's building there. I think he's going to really sleep, and I think he is going to have an early role this season.
Yeah, I love that. And we're a little bit worried about size. These guys all have their warts, but that's the thing, right? Is like if you at this stage of the draft, if you don't have size, you're slow. Right. Or if you do have size, you're slow. And if you don't have size, you're hyper athletic, but you might not last in the NFL. At least that's our thought process. Tom, as we wrap up here, we can see the names in the 4th round, but I have a question that I do not want to forget to ask you because unfortunately I forgot to ask JJ, which was my last show. And it's the question about age, right? Certainly we have NIL that's keeping these guys in school. We had COVID just a couple of years ago that extended these guys' college careers. The players coming out now are older. So things like breakout age, which we relied on so much in fantasy, seems to be less important than it was in years past. What do you think about guys who break out young and it do, 25-year-olds coming out this year, if they're good, does that worry you? RJ Harvey, I think, is 24 years old, so he's a good example. Are you worried about older guys coming out now?
It's tough, man, because I think even I said it earlier in the show is that when I look at wide receivers, I look at early declare wide receivers, and we're going to see a lot less of that, especially with the NIL going forward, because a lot of guys are going to make more money than they potentially could if they, end up being a day 2, day 3 guy. They're going to stay longer in college football. So it's tough. There's certain positions where I don't care as much. Tight end might be one of those positions because that's a position where normally it takes a lot of time to learn. Running back, I don't necessarily care as much because those guys don't necessarily hit their prime until that 24 to 28 age window. Wide receivers, I care a little bit more about because if they're not elite at an early age, it's really hard for them to be elite at the NFL level. Kind of the same thing with quarterbacks. Obviously, there's players who kind of go against that. Obviously, there's always exceptions to the rule, but just in my opinion, that's how I kind of view them.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, and I love how you broke it down by position as well, because certainly everybody wants he's not out this year, but everyone wants the Jeremiah Smith. If you're
Yeah,
playing Devy leagues like Tom, I'm sure you are, and if you're not, you need to get in there with your knowledge, your vast knowledge building. But everybody wants that breakout freshman guy, right? Because they want to see him blossom before their eyes, and they want to be right, right? We all want to be right.
right.
But the thing is that there are guys all the time that surprise us, and we have to be ready for the Devon Vele's of the world who are mildly productive in year one as a 26-year-old, because then you can sell the crap out of them immediately and at least gain a little bit of value on those guys. But yeah, it's really hard right now, and I don't know what the answer is. I know that Derek Brown on the show would tell you he doesn't care that RJ Harvey is 24 years old. He's great and he's going to draft the hell out of him anyway. JJ, on the other hand, would tell you and did that, his prospect model still heavily, values age and breakout age. So there are late breakouts, of course, but this is all factored into these models. So it depends what you believe. My belief is that the game is changing and we have to change with it if we want to find the edge. But yeah, I don't know that there's a right answer there. But speaking of right answers, Tom, why don't you tell us who had the right answer in this draft? I'll recap the fourth round, and why don't you have a look at some of these teams and give us one or two that you really like from top to bottom. So again, we had Tez at the 404, Woody Marks 405, Sanders, Allen, as Tom talked about, Gunnar Helm, who look terrible testing, but if you saw his ankle that he posted on social media, I mean, you could at least forgive him a little bit. We're not forgiving Restrepo. We didn't see a post of a hammy on social. Ty Felton at the 4-9, Kyle McCord. Look, I love it. He would probably be my quarterback 5. It's certainly not going to be any of these other guys like Shook, but we'll see. You got Trevor Etienne at the 4-11 and Taj Brooks for myself at the 4-12. Again, just banking on these guys who could make an impact, however unlikely. So, Tom, who do you got? Whose draft do you love?
Well, first I want to say I agree with you about Kyle McCord. Super underrated kid, and I think he could be great in the league. But one guy who I think had a great draft is Bigger Me. I think it's Bigger Me James, the 1-3.
Jamie, yeah.
Yeah, getting double quarterbacks, potential starters, in a super flex is pretty huge. I like Elick as well, another early declare player. And Jordan James doesn't necessarily hurt coming out of Oregon with his final pick. And then another guy I really like is our buddy there, Joe O'Leary.
Yes, sir.
Colston Loveland, tight end premium. I love Devin Neal, Besh, who we talked about. And then of course you have Travis Etienne's brother, Trevor, out of Georgia, who I think is getting a little bit slept on. I think he's a little bit more pro ready than some of these other guys. But fourth at the 4-11, that's a pretty good pick as well. Honestly, there's a lot of good drafts here. I think it's going to be. It's so hard to tell pre NFL draft because there's so much potential value could change up. So I'm really interested to see. Actually, I want to save this and see how it looks, how one of these looks post draft too.
Absolutely. I'm going to give love to D Hart at the 108. Got Henderson with the incredible value there. Look, I think Henderson goes in the first round or early second. I think if Hampton is gone, the Broncos would be stupid to pass up on Trey Henderson. We'll see what they end up doing. You got Scatabo. The dude can catch. I mean, we love guys who can catch, but we hate Cam Scatabo. I don't understand that. He should probably be higher than Harvey. Even though I love Harvey, he should probably be higher than Caleb, even though the dude is a machine out there. And DJ Giddens, absolutely crazy athleticism there. The guy is just flat out good. And then Gunnar Helm, like we talked about with the ankle issue while testing. Another one I'll shout out is Brian from the 2-hole. You got TEP. No arguments there. You got Matthew Golden at value at the 2-2. That guy's probably going to go first round, a worst case, early second round. So Matthew Golden will have value. Damian Martinez. I love Martinez. You talked about watching Cam. All the Cam's guys in this draft, they ate last year. They look great. Damian Martinez, no exception. And then Brashard Smith, really hard to hate any of those values there. Love the ones you picked. Love those drafts as well. And then Tom, looking at your draft, how do you feel about how it went down? Do you love it? Mixed feelings? How are you looking at it now?
Little bit mixed feelings. I don't necessarily hate Harris, but I think he might be a little one-trick pony-ish at the NFL, where he could be just a kind of more of a deep threat guy than an actual, well-rounded route runner. Ferguson, I think, is a decent pick if I have him as my tight end 3, and I like the Allen pick. Burden, I was really, going back and forth between Burden and Henderson, but I kind of have Burden as like my wide receiver, 2.
Nice.
So I
Nice.
kind of have to. I got to stick to my rankings there. So I'm fine with what I got.
I love it. And for myself, Shador at the 112.
Yeah.
It's the first time I've seen Shador fall that far. Again, I think it's the look. There's nothing else to talk about right now on social media. People are like, punching holes in every single guy, and Shador Sanders pats the ball 500 times. I think some of these things are silly. But we'll have to see where he lands and where he goes. Sanders or Dart there in a Superflex league. I think both of those guys end up as rookie first-round draft picks when it's all said and done, but we'll see. Higgins, I love the value there. I was really happy with that. Ollie Gordon, I keep picking him at the 312. Would I prefer Restrepo? Maybe. Would I prefer Brashad Smith? Maybe. Would I prefer someone like a Woody Marks? Maybe. So I don't love the Ollie Gordon pick, but it's really hard for me to look at someone who was borderline end of the first round rookie pick, back in January. And now to see how far he's fallen, rightly so. But it's really hard to see him still available in the third round and not pulling the trigger there for me. And then Taj Brooks. I mean, we don't need to talk about any of these guys at the back end of the fourth, but we do need to talk about this in terms of running backs. So I did a study on Reddit about a month ago, now maybe slightly longer. Basically, the idea was looking at all the different positions and which hit in terms of later round NFL draft selections and how they hit for you for fantasy. The answer was they really didn't. You had your outliers, but basically it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 8% of all of these guys can have a reasonable bench spot on your dynasty roster, and only 2% across the board. I mean, I think it was like 1.6 for tight end and 1.8 for quarterback and then 2.1, but it was roughly 2% across the board of these guys actually become league winning type guys. So my question to you is, how do you feel about drafting a running back in the fourth round of your rookie drafts if he's taken on day 3 of the NFL draft? Because historically those don't hit. JJ Zacharyson also said there's zero correlation between any day 3 draft where they're draft pick where they're drafted, so around 4, 5, 6, 7, and their fantasy success.
That's an insane stat to hear. That does not bode well for a lot of people then.
Yeah, man.
Oh God, I don't necessarily want to go against it because I know that there's a lot of truth to that. Even just NFL centric stuff, day 3 guys are like a drop in the you're kind of getting lucky if you get a hit on there.
Yeah.
This year, I don't want to say it's different because then I'm gonna say, but this year, maybe I feel a little bit different about the running back class just because there's so many talented guys. I don't think I'd be very surprised if we saw like a workhorse kind of player, come out of that. But potentially a complimentary guy, why not?
Yeah. And I will say in that group, some people are saying this is one of the best running back drafts in decades. Some people are saying at least since 2017. 2017, we had 30 running backs drafted. In that group of day 3 running backs drafted were Aaron Jones and Chris Carson. So you can have, when you have a lot of running backs, you can have guys who hit for you. Long term and immediately. I mean, Carson would have been long term if not for the ridiculous injuries that guy endured. So, with the sheer volume of backs, I tend to agree with you. One thing JJ said is what it means for me is I'm taking my 3rd round pick and I'm trading it for 2/4 because I just want more shots at it. I thought that was an interesting take. But yeah, it's sad. As I always like to say, just trade the hell out of your 3rds and 4ths the year before so you don't always have to worry about it. Um, we got Jamie saying, thanks for liking this draft at the 103. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us. Always a good time with you, Eric. Taylor at tight end 6 feels like stealing. He's your 3rd tight end, and that's fine. We all have interesting values here at tight end after the top 2, and I don't hate you picking any of them. It's really, really a good draft class for running backs and for tight ends, maybe not for anyone else. So once again, this was Adjust the Ranks. Tom, thank you so much for joining us. We'll do us first because we saved the best for last here at ATR. We have our Discord. It's in the chat right now, Fantasy Football Universe. Please jump in. We just started a couple of weeks ago, so we're just looking for, look, we're not selling you anything right now. We're just a bunch of guys talking ball. So jump in, chat with us. And we kind of soft launched it as well. Maybe we'll hard launch it as the season comes through, hoping to get a bunch of people in there, just sharing as much information as possible, trying to get better all the time. And once again, here is our upcoming list. We've got Andrew Erickson, we've got the FFU team, and more to come in May and beyond. So please join us. Thank you for joining us now. And Tom, please tell everybody once again what you're doing, where to find you, and how to get all the info, all the great info on these young college players.
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on my Twitter at ThomasCP_NFL, which is on the screen there. Or you can follow us at the League Winners on Instagram. It's the League Winners. On Twitter, it's League Winners NM right now because for some reason the main one got suspended. Don't know why, but that's kind of Elon's Twitter right now. And then you can
Ridiculous.
also, dude, it's insane. And then you could also find us at the website itself at theleaguewinners.com. And I'm going to be, covering Syracuse this year and Delaware football and a bunch of other stuff. So we kind of got the whole East Side figured out and some West Side stuff too for anybody who enjoys.
Nice. So if you want the next Rondé Gadsden or Kyle McCord, this guy's your guy. We'll make sure all that information is linked down below in the description when you rewatch this. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. And we will end with a little Jim Carrey because who doesn't like a little Jim Carrey in their life? This has been Adjust the Ranks. We will see you next time.
I hate goodbyes.
Lloyd,